All righty, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Kellenberger. I'm the Director of Beach Operations. Welcome to the Destination Improvement Committee, our first meeting for 2018. A few things before we get started. If everybody can silence their cell phones, or if you have to take phone calls, if you can take them outside, we'd appreciate it. To make your mic work, button on top, little red button, up is on, down is off. We record both audio and video in these meetings for public record, and if anybody wants to go back and look at it again. So to get started, we have a quorum today, 4 out of 7 members. I will chair the meeting until we get to the point where we're going to elect our new chair and vice chair. And first thing I want to do is go over, well, first, is there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. So expectations. The Destination Improvement Committee, in short, is a committee to help the TDC and the BCC make decisions on improvements to public spaces. So public spaces are, of course, our beach accesses, our regional beach accesses, our neighborhood beach accesses, the connecting right-of-ways on the road in between there, and the amenities that we put within those areas. It also gets into a little bit of some items that happen on the beach, some of our beach-related codes as it pertains to different aspects that would make improvements to our destination. So I'd like to start off with the mission, specifically what it says. And it says, Walton County Tourist Development Council's Destination Improvement Advisory Committee will support efforts and provide feedback in the areas of capital improvement projects, visitor center renovation, South Walton signage, public parks, and paths. The goal of the committee is to ensure that South Walton beaches and beach-associated amenities meet a uniform, high-quality standard. The committee will also provide input in selecting beach improvement projects. So, I encourage everybody that has not made themselves aware of all of our beach accesses to, you can get online, go to our Visit South Walton, you can pull up a map of it. Of course, it's best to get out and visit all of them to take a look at how they currently exist and start thinking about ways to that would make improvements with the emphasis on standardizing the look so that when people come to our destination and they're on a public beach access boardwalk, they can know it without really having to look at a sign. The committee composition in terms. So on this committee we have some specific seats, and then we have 2 seats that are from business or industry related to tourism. And so the first member is a Walton County Tourist Development Council member. That is Gary Brillmeyer. He sits on our council. He's also the GM of the Hilton at Sandestin. Next one is South Walton Turtle Watch representative. That is our new member, Kelly Anderson. Correct. And Kelly, appreciate you joining our committee. The next member is Kate Johnson, and Kate is a member from the construction engineering and planning industry. Kate has a home inspection company, is that right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And next member is Patrick Hartsfield. Patrick could not make it today, unfortunately, but he'll be at our next meeting. He is the assistant manager at Grayton Beach and Deer Lake State Park. He is the FDEP State Park representative. Rick Talbert, Chief Talbert, is our South Walton Fire District representative. And then Mary Lou Maris is one of our business, industry, and tourism-related members. And Lee Moore is the other member, and she's not here today either. So that makes up our committee, and most everybody's actually returning in some form or fashion except for Kelly. So Kelly's a newcomer, and we appreciate it. Moving on. Code of conduct. Within your package that you received last week or week before, there's a code of conduct. I hope everybody's had a chance to read through it. Basically tells you how we expect or what we expect committee members to act, professional and all that. And if you can read it. Is there any questions or comments about any of the code of conduct? Okay. If you do have any later on, feel free to give me a call or email me. I will respond accordingly, but it's pretty easy to read, and if you'll sign the document and hand it off to Stacy when you leave today, I'd appreciate it. All righty, moving on through. Left out a few other things in the first part. The appointments are for 2 years. The meetings are the odd months of the year on the first Thursday of the month, and this meeting will be at 1 p.m. There is a slight deviation around holidays, but the scheduled days are listed in your package here, and we'll also schedule out for 2019 to let you know in advance when those are. So, in order to make sure that the meeting is meaningful and your associates' time is meaningful, if everybody can make sure they make it to the meetings, there are provisions for being excused. There's also provisions if you just don't show up for a couple of meetings, we'll let you know that, hey, if it's not working, we probably need to get a new committee member. But like I say, the work we do here I feel is important. We've made some good strides in improving the public ways. So try to make every meeting. If you can't, if you have an excusable reason you have to be out, just let me know, and we'll work around everything. Of course, if you need to resign, just send me a letter that says appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to have to resign. And it's all listed here. You can read it and make yourselves more aware of it. Next is the Sunshine Law and Legal Ethics. We do operate as a committee. We will operate our committee meetings under Robert's Rules of Orders. And so in items that we're voting on, we'll follow the usual, a motion, a second, discussion amongst the board, discussion from the general public, and then we'll vote on it. If you're not aware of Robert's Rules of Order, be a good read on that as well. Look it up and just understand the basic workings of it so that you as a committee member can follow during the meeting. And also if you there's certain ways in there that you can stop discussion and stuff like that. So I do try to keep the meetings informal so that we spur good conversation amongst the board members and by the general public. But in order to keep the meetings, nice and neat and on track, we do follow Robert's Rules of Orders. Sunshine Law and Legal Ethics. Heather Chrisman is from the Waldron County Legal Department, and she will give us a short presentation on sunshine laws and legal ethics.
Hello. I'm Heather Chrisman. Good to meet y'all. Hopefully I'll get a chance to meet y'all one-on-one at some point here. I've just got a couple of real brief items to go over with you. You do have about 10 or 12 pages of PowerPoint in your packet. I'm not really going to go on that. I'm just going to kind of just talk to you about it generally. It's just a couple of guiding principles. Now that if you're on a committee this is a local government committee in Florida, I'm sure you're all aware we do have sunshine law and open government. And the basis of that is that the public is entitled to not just know what decisions legislatively or quasi-judicially that the local government comes up with, but also to understand the thought process and how that decision was arrived at. So you all are part of that process, being an advisory committee, and ultimately your votes on your recommendations will trickle their way upward to ultimately the Board of County Commissioners. So you're a part of the process. You are going to be subject to those same open government rules as well. Chapter 286 in Florida statutes has 3 requirements to meet the sunshine law, and that is for any time there's a meeting with 2 or more of the members of the same board or committee. So the 7 of you up here just get to know who each other are, so that way you don't inadvertently violate the sunshine law. So if there's ever any meeting or discussions between just 2 of you or more, it has to be open to the public, it has to be publicly noticed, and there has to be minutes taken. So when you get together for a meeting here, the county or the TDC, the county takes care of making sure that the notices have been done appropriately. So it's really more important for if you're out and about and you run into each other in public, you know, if there's two of you from the same committee, then you need to refrain from discussing anything that could possibly come in front of you in the future. So it can be a gray area sometimes. I mean, you know definitely the stuff that's on the next agenda, but you know, just kind of keep in mind the umbrella of the issues that you may be discussing, and it's, you know, it's our human nature to want to chit chat about things that are of common interest, but we kind of have to reprogram ourselves a little bit when we're dealing with these government positions. So anything that's possible, it's definitely, or if it's feasible to come in front of you, wait till you're at a meeting. And one of the things to be aware of as well, when you get here for the meeting, sometimes we get here a little bit early, and you know, we're all sitting up there waiting for the clock to strike whatever time the meeting starts at. You're not supposed to start talking about it until the notice time. So if the meeting starts at 3 and you're waiting up there, just you can talk about anything else under the sun, but just not about the business you're here to discuss. So that's number one. The next thing, anybody have any questions about that? Okay. And the next thing to go over is going to be public records. Also, you're going to be governed by the public records rules. Now, really, you know, for your purposes, if a member of the community emails you, that's going to be, if it's about what your committee is formed for, that would be a public record. If there's text messages, anything of that nature, those are also going to be public records. So I don't know what types of communications that you would get, but in the event somebody does email you or you email somebody else, the easiest thing for you to do would be to make sure you forward it to Stacy, so that she can keep a copy of it in the file. And the significance of that is if our legal department or anybody in the county gets a request for public records for Ms. Johnson's, all of her emails related to this board for the last however long, then that's going to get processed through us. Ultimately, we'll contact you and say, hey, we need whatever you may have. If you've already sent it to Stacy, then your job's already done. It doesn't mean that it's going to open you up to your personal communications, but you know, if you don't have a county email, it's the easiest thing to do is just try to keep communications like that to a minimum. If it becomes necessary, you can get in touch with Brian, and they'll look at, you know, the possibility of setting up a county email address, so that way all those are retained on our server. So the other thing again is going to be text messages, public records, and I will flip through the slides for this. Here we go. It's Chapter 119, Florida statutes, and any member of the public's entitled to inspect or copy any public records. And the definition of public records, you'll see how broad it is. It's all documents, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, films, sound recordings, data processing software, or other material, regardless of the physical form, characteristic, or means of transmission made or received pursuant to law or ordinance, or in connection with the transaction of official business by any agency. So it's a pretty broad definition. So just keep that in mind as people may send you things in the future. Does anybody have any questions about public records?
I've heard that we're not allowed to take notes on anything in front of us, and if we do, we have to give all of that to Stacy before we leave the building. Is that still true?
The best thing, if you have any particular questions, something like that, if it's notes for your own purposes, I mean, you can get in contact with me, but the best practice, if you do take any notes at all, is to give those to Stacy, though. Okay. So that way there's no question about anything.
That's what I've been told in the past. That's why I wanted to bring a pen.
That's the best practice.
Yeah.
There may be some nuances there, and I'm happy to discuss those with you. But yes, if you take any notes, you know, just in an abundance of caution, the best thing to do is make sure that Stacy gets them.
Okay.
If it's your grocery list, we don't mind it.
Well, we went through real long training, you know, with the Coastal Dune Lake, so that's one thing I learned not to do. Yeah.
Well, so everybody's familiar with this is good.
Yeah.
You're making my job easy. And just also to be aware, and it's in your packet, the statutory information. There are penalties for knowing violations of these. There's fines, and then also some other criminal implications if it's a knowing and willful violation. So be aware of that. And the last thing to go over is not in your material, but this is on voting conflicts. Chapter 112 of Florida statutes governs ethics of folks that are on local government boards and committees. What y'all need to know, and I'm going to defer to Brian on, can you think of any examples that they may, for voting conflicts? for this, okay. It may not be anything that you ever have to deal with, but a voting conflict would be defined in the statute as any action that you may be taking that could benefit you or be a detriment to you in some special way that is different than that of the general public. So in the statute it says actually if it inures to your special private gain or loss or to that of a family member or a business associate. I don't know of any time that something like this would affect you in a decision that you made, but just be aware if it's something you're not sure about something, if you feel like it may be a conflict for you to vote on it, you just recuse yourself, and there's a form that you'd fill out why you're recusing yourself. If you're ever not sure, if you see something on the agenda and you think it may be a conflict, just give me a call, and you can discuss it with me, and then I can advise you on whether you should recuse yourself or not. And then the good thing is if you don't recuse yourself, and if I was wrong, it's on me. So any questions, just always please feel free. That's what we're here for. So that concludes the information I had for you. If you have any questions for me, let me know. If something comes up in the future, just give me a call.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry for my tardiness. Trying to be two places at once. With regard to the Sunshine Law and the Code of Conduct, as a sitting member of this committee, if we take action with an affirmed vote or not support a particular issue, can members of the committee individually go before the Board of County Commissioners and speak in opposition of something that we might have affirmed voted?
That wouldn't trigger any sunshine issue if it's just a member of the board. Your committee is the 7 of you up here.
Right.
So if one of you does want to address the Board of County Commissioners, that wouldn't be any sunshine.
Yeah, I
issue with
apologize.
that.
I guess I apologize. The
The code of conduct. Now
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
I'm not familiar with the code of conduct for this, so if what I'm saying is in any way contrary to the code of conduct, let me know. So if that's not a statutory issue, I'm not familiar with that. So Brian, I will defer to you on the code of conduct info.
We certainly don't want to, withhold anybody's personal ability to express themselves in front of other boards. As a member of this committee, we would expect you to respect the committee's decision on a given item. And so, it really comes down to that person's desire, which desire is pulling him the strongest. And if, I'm kind of a firm believer in that, if you're on a board and you have a difference with the board, that is very powerful to you, that sometimes the best thing to do is to get off the board that you're not in agreement with. See what I'm saying? And by no means, Chief, am I saying that I want you to get off the board. You know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking that's a personal decision.
No, I was asking for a friend. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. No, in all seriousness, I wanted to make sure and clarify because, I'm looking and introduce myself to we have new members of this committee.
Right.
And I know we spent an intense amount of time last year on a particular ordinance that's gone before our elected body that's still I think, being vetted publicly until an affirmed vote. But we spent a lot of time in here affirming, and no, we're not interested in that one. We think we move to approve that moving forward. And I just observed that a member of the committee spoke in opposition to what we affirmed and spent a lot of time on it. It just intrigued me to think about what's our obligation if we
Right.
Our responsibility and our code of conduct and our respect amongst each other as boards. I agree with you that you don't want to hinder somebody's ability to speak about anything, but
Right.
if we affirm and we digest and discern through that and decide in an affirmed vote that our position is this, and then that person speaks in opposition, I just didn't know if that's,
Right.
I don't think it's an issue of legality. I think it's more, to me, it's
It
conduct.
truly is an issue of, respect for the committee.
Thank you.
Yeah. For those of y'all that don't know, this is Chief Talbert, South Walton Fire District, and Lee Moore, our other business industry representative. So welcome to the meeting. You are
Thank
just
you.
in time for
Apologies.
the
Yeah,
election.
apologies here. I made it before you leave.
No problem.
Just barely.
Hey, y'all are just in time for the election of the chair and vice chair. And so, you know, a lot of times when you're not here, you get nominated.
I just moved
So,
over.
as my last business as temporary chair or intermediate chair, do we have any nominations for chair of the board? It can be a self-nomination, or, you know, if you want to just make a quick discussion amongst yourselves, you can do it.
No, I'm brand new. Nobody wants to do the blind leading the blind.
I nominate Lee Moore.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion.
There's someone not here. Patrick
It's Batman,
Hartsfield.
Okay.
Can you be your vice? Will you be your vice chair?
There you go.
I-
So vice chair?
I nominate Rick as vice chair. Well,
Okay, let's do the chair. All right, so we have a motion
Oh, I
for
see.
Lee Moore as chair. Do I have a second?
Oh, yeah.
All right, you second? Okay, we have a second. Any discussion amongst the council? No, any discussion from the public? All in favor? Say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, Lee. You're chair for a year. All right, so nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Rick.
All right, so we have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion amongst the board, committee? None? Any discussion amongst the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, Chief. So with that, I will turn it over to Lee Moore as the new chair of this committee, and I will resume my position as liaison.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, so next item up is a presentation from a member of the public, Trees on the Coast, Alan French. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. French. Welcome.
This is scary, all the official-looking stuff.
Very formal.
My name's Dr. Alan French. I retired and moved here about 5 years ago, 5 to 6 years ago. And 3 years ago, we started a nonprofit called Trees on the Coast. And it's a 501c3 environmental nonprofit. And our goal is to enhance the beauty of Walton and Okaloosa County, one tree at a time. That's kind of our mission statement. So we're preservation, protecting trees, and planting. The reason I came today, well, let me back up. Do you all have this? It's the last page of your packet. Just so I don't need to read that to y'all. But I came from Atlanta, and there was an organization called Trees Atlanta that downtown Atlanta was a concrete jungle in the 1970s, and they started this organization, and they planted like 300,000 trees, and now there's tree-lined streets in Atlanta. And so our organization is patterned after that. We raise donations, then we take those donations and we buy and plant trees in public areas. So we don't go behind gates and subdivisions. But why I'm here today is to, number one, let y'all know what we are. Number two, see if I can garner some support for our mission. And number three, maybe give us some ideas. Our loose goal right now is to enhance 30A. I watch the joggers and walkers and bicyclists on the bike path, and in the middle of summer, it's like an asphalt oven bake for these people. And I see pictures of Savannah, Georgia, where when they come to Savannah, visit Savannah, whatever their group is, like y'all, and all you see are these live oak trees that are just gorgeous. You see roads where the live oaks make a tunnel down the road. So one of our dreams is to duplicate what Rosemary Beach looks like when you come down 30A, all over 30A. And I think having a tree-lined corridor with a tunnel, and then you come up and there's a lake to your left or a lake to your right, I just think it would, number one, it helps the environment. Number two, it beautifies the area. Number three, it increases property values. I'm assuming that y'all are pushing eco-tourism in Walton County, and people love to go on a bike ride in the shade instead of in 95-degree asphalt jungle fever. And so one of the issues we run into, we recently proposed a project at the intersection of Eastern Lake Road and 30A where Resort Quest is. I call it, and our board calls it the dirt triangle. It's a bunch of weeds and some sand, and it's quite frankly not pleasing to look at, where you have all this other beauty on 30A. So we proposed a project to put some live oaks in there and some muley grasses and some pine straw, and just make it like a little pocket park. Maybe even put a bench in there dedicating it who donated money to us to do the project. And we're willing to give this to the county, give it to the citizens of Walton County. Long story short, we're pretty much have been shot down on that project, and a lot of it has to do, I was dealing directly with the county engineer, who, by the way, is a great guy. But I got bombarded with like 6 emails from Chelco to Okaloosa, or the gas company, or whoever it is, and overhead power lines. There aren't any overhead power lines, but we were told there's overhead power lines, so you can't plant an oak tree. Anyway, I'm not here to complain about that, but in my research, I found out that there's a rule, BCC ordinance or rule, that doesn't allow any tree plantings in right of way in, I don't know if it's all of Walton County or on 30A. And if that's the case, I talked to Cecilia Jones yesterday at the Walton Chamber meeting, and she was surprised and said, well, let me see what I can do to help you out. I'm going to be contacting Tony Anderson, which I haven't done because this just happened 2 days ago, and then this meeting was scheduled. I was so happy I could come here and talk to y'all. But we really want to help. I mean, we want to give beautification and trees to local communities around here. And our biggest issue right now is getting the governments to allow us to do that. There's a myriad of laws and ordinances and everything that's, when you talk with employees of the county, they have to go, and I understand this completely, they have to go by what their rules are. They can't vary from that. So I decided I would go to the top, which is y'all, and I'm planning on going to the county commission also. But I think having a Rosemary Beach like 30A on many areas of 30A for people that don't live in Rosemary or people that don't live in Watercolor where they planted them is just a noble goal, and that's what we want to do. I did notice that going east out of Rosemary, there's about 5 or 6 live oaks that have been planted in the right-of-way recently. They still have so if there's a will, there's a way. And I need to plead with y'all to have the will to help us make something like this happen in Walton County, because I love trees, and when I drive around, I like looking at nice things. And I begged, sent out an email yesterday. They're doing that 98 widening. I said, can we get trees on the sides too? Because I'd rather look at trees than Walmart parking lot. And this county is so gorgeous, but it could be, over the top. And so I'm not going to keep boring you with my passion and vision, but I don't know if this will help anything. But I just wanted it in your heads that this is what we want to do, is give trees to Walton County and the citizens of Walton County. and we think it would help with your tourism, just because it makes it a unique place versus just beach store, beach town. You know, it's not that, and I think we can make it even better. So, do y'all have any questions for me or about our organization or anything?
Are you, one quick question, how to support you? So are you requesting to go to the BCC to recommend a change in that ordinance specifically?
I would
or
like-
How could we help as, I guess?
Well, I don't know the inner workings of government. You know, I'm just a retired dentist that just loves trees and wants to help the community. But you know that it's in there. I read it because it was when I applied for the permit or got the permit papers. He said, "Be sure to read this," and I saw no trees allowed in the right of way.
Is that information that you can share with us?
I can. I can email Lee. I have Lee's email address. I can email Lee if you want me to, or email. Who should I email?
Me.
Legally.
Yeah.
Email me, here's your card.
It was given to me by the county engineer,
Yeah.
but I
It's
just think.
So Brian, can you, I'm sorry, Alan,
Yeah.
can you help us with that? Do
Sure,
you know
yeah,
what
what he's
that's
talking
referring
about,
to?
it's actually a part of our land development code that deals with right-of-ways. And so it would have to be a land development code change. Now, there are entities that have some trees in the right-of-way. I believe they were done by development orders that were probably PUDs or possibly DRIs. And there may be some provisions within those different things. But let us do some research and talk with the county engineers and the county planners and see what the best avenue is of getting, not saying it will be oak trees, but understand that, you know, some form of tree of something is appropriate. And better understand why that's in our land development code.
And what other possibilities there are, not around it, but with it? Because I know, for instance, the East Corridor project, we planted some trees in the right-of-way through that project. Now, what might make a difference is there were developers there that were willing to enter into a right-of-way use agreement and commit to maintaining those medians into perpetuity. So, so we may run into some maintenance types of things, but I mean, it seems worthy of getting some information and trying to figure out.
We'll
what
figure it
can
out,
and
you know,
can't
what
be done.
exactly the stopping point was and what's in the code, what we're allowed to do, and then we'll figure out a way to make a change, if we can, that will work. I think it's a good idea what you're doing. And
Thank you.
obviously, you're right.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's already trees up and down the right of way. So somehow, somebody did it.
Yep.
That's what I said. If there's a will, you know, people have to have a vision and passion to make it happen. So I can't do it alone. I mean, all I can do is try to raise money and play. And by the way, we're doing a project on 393 at the seminary, not seminary, cemetery. I'm super
Big difference.
religious. I'm a very religious man. No, but we're hoping to do that and then partner with the Ohana Institute. Bring the kids out there and do a tree planting and educational program by the end of this month. When I got shot down on the dirt triangle on Eastern Lake Road, I got a call like 10 minutes later from a man from the cemetery. They have a group out there that's very involved and asked if we'd donate trees, so we're going to do that.
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion, if it's okay, that if we can get some of this technical information together and figure out what our options are or might be, I think it might be helpful to, you don't have to go crazy with detail, but start thinking about a plan for that entire corridor and where you feel your organization might want to come in and do these plantings, and how much you think trees on the coast might be able to do if it's a phased, you know, do you want a phased approach? Is it a one-shot deal?
It would
in
be
one
phased. It's
area?
hard to do 20 miles of live oaks with
Oh, yeah.
the little amount of money
No,
that
no,
we
no.
have, but we are going to become a force. I promise you, we're going to become a force
I believe
for positive change, and
so that might
I'm not going to let it go. So
that might be helpful to.
A plan, a landscape plan, or?
No, a plan of, you know, even if it doesn't have to be followed to the month or year, but, you know, here's what how long of a stretch you think you can do at a time, and here's where you'd like to start. We can talk through those kinds of things, but it'd be great to have a place to start the conversation versus just a blank page.
So do I email Brian with
Correct.
kind of what we're looking to do, or? And
Yes, sir.
do you need the ordinance that I was referring
I have it
to?
right here.
And it says you can't plant trees in the right of
What
way.
it says is no understory or canopy trees as defined by Walton County Land Development Code 5.01.02, which I'm assuming is a table, shall be approved in association with a right-of-way use permit. That's what she's referred to as a right-of-way agreement. And so my guess is that you said live oaks? Or what kind of oak trees you want?
Sand oaks or live oaks, I can tell you with my 3 years of experience, the local population absolutely wants native trees.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do.
Yeah, let me, I'll get everything together and we'll email it out here in a week or so. I just need to do all the proper research, talk to people who are involved. And then we can take up some action at our next meeting as to what we would like to do as a committee. It might be as simple as that, you know, there are certain trees that are allowed, and maybe that is what we should go. You know, sometimes it's better to take on what's allowed as to try to get what I want.
I just read no understory or overstory trees.
Right.
I didn't know if there was some
Let's find out
exception.
what's in 5.01.02. Instead of looking on the phone, I'd like to sit down and
Okay.
take some time to digest it. And I'd also like to do a little bit of research on, you know, how other areas were allowed to put in trees that may not be, or that are not contained within this approved list.
Well, Grayton, they just planted a bunch of oak trees,
Yeah, they did.
which is awesome. You know, and we
There's-
want to
there's-
partner with people too. I mean,
Right.
we want to partner with groups and businesses and organizations that have our vision. So, and it saves the county and the taxpayers all kind of money.
Definitely. Well, I think this is a great start, and if we can just get that technical information back to us our next meeting,
Okay.
and a start of a plan to start working from, and pulling something together from that perspective.
Okay.
Great.
And so, do you just want me to kind of come up with some ideas, or
Sure.
do y'all have any ideas what you would like? I mean, I look at Oyster Lake, and it's so bare in that part, that western end. But then I think, well, you really be crazy to plant oaks or sand oaks right there because it's sea level. I don't know if the next storm, if they're going to be underwater and dead. So I don't know. You know, we talked about the west entrance to 30A. You know, kind of try to do it like the east entrance or something. But anyway, okay, I'll come up with some ideas and I'll email Brian. Correct?
Perfect. Great.
Okay. Thank y'all so
Thank you.
much
Thank
for
you.
letting
Thank
me
you.
speak and
Any, sure.
Public comment.
Are you guys, yep, you guys good? Do you have any other questions? No.
okay.
Thank you.
Any,
Thank you.
thank you, Alan. Any questions or comments from the public? Come on up. Thank you.
Coy Bowman. I have a question for Mr. Frank, I guess, French. Where would he get these live oak trees from?
There's any number of sources. There's Panhandle Growers is up in Milton, Florida. They have hundreds and hundreds of live oaks.
Okay. Well, something that Mr. French doesn't understand is that this island used to be covered in live oaks, and St. Joe cut them all down and didn't pay the timber taxes on them. And then St. Joe stole all the roots, guaranteeing that the live oaks wouldn't grow back. And the reason the county doesn't want trees being planted along the medians is because what the county really wants to do is sink this island, because without the live oaks, the island will sink. They've gone into the state forests and they've stolen all of the live oaks out of the forest. So these nurseries in Milton and down in Disney World that grow their own live oaks, they got them all from our forests. And now they're going to force the taxpayers to buy them back and plant them down the middle of the road so that the road can say they still own them, so they can harvest all of that oak wood and not have to pay for any of it. There's a huge scam going on with the live oak trees. They've all been stolen from us, and now we're going to be forced to buy them back. And what really the county wants to do is to sink this island so all the white sand washes up to the north side of the Choctawhatchee Bay. That's why there's this ridiculous code in the code that says that you can't plant trees along the side of the road, because they really don't want trees being planted on this island because they want to sink this island. So I admire Mr. French, who wants to be environmental and make everything beautiful, because I totally agree. There's no reason that all these trees should have been cut down. Florida needs shade. People need shade. It keeps the temperature down. Of course, you have just elected for your chair somebody who represents and defends St. Joe. So,
Ms. Bowman?
know,
If you have a productive question or comment related to what we just discussed about the tree projects or potential, that's fine, but otherwise we need to move on.
my comment is that it's a scam. So,
Okay,
thank
thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is any general public comments about things that are not on the agenda. And for the record, I do not ever represent St. Joe.
You
nothing-
defend them all the time.
I have nothing to do with them.
You defend
Ms.
them all
Bowman,
the
thank
time.
you. Appreciate it. So public comment otherwise? Council comments, which committee comments? Anybody have anything?
I just want to say my company had a beach cleanup today. Kelly and I were down there early in the morning. We did the Blue Mountain Beach access and just got all the deteriorating plastic bags that are at the toe of the dunes that's been blowing up there that nobody picks up, and about 700 cigarette butts and straws and bottle
wow.
caps, and we're ready for spring breakers.
Good job.
We made that one look pretty.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's great work.
I have something.
All right.
Thank you. A question really for Brian, maybe he can help me out with this. I know this is the discussion we've had for the last year or so. I know a lot of efforts going in, speaking of 30A, a lot of work's going into infrastructure, the multi-use path, right-of-ways, bridges, crosswalks and the like, and a lot of good work's been done so far. Do we have any kind of timeline on what we're doing with some of those pedestrian crosswalks that we talked about that would have some sort of lighting for people crossing the streets at dark? Because the season is upon us, and if anybody noticed, especially this past weekend with so many folks here for the race, we got a lot of people darting in and out of traffic in the dark, and we've got a concern about that.
We were moving along pretty good with our new crosswalk sign and flashing light. Unfortunately, there was what was the issue, Josh? Josh has more information on this. He handles most of these projects for us.
So the device that you're talking about is the RRFB. Unfortunately, at the state level, they had adopted the federal MUTCD code for that RRFB. The feds decided that they were no longer going to allow the use of those. So basically what the Florida Department of Transportation has said, any future installations cannot be comprised of those actual RRFB units. So it's my understanding that the county engineering department is looking at alternatives, and we'll hopefully have an alternative for the crosswalk plan. It's unfortunate that we had kind of gone full on with that particular RRFB in our plan, and then it was abruptly kind of stalled due to that decision that was made at the federal level.
Right, thanks, Josh. And for mine, and I probably everybody else's clarification, RFB you're talking about, is that the solar unit that creates the flash?
That's correct, yep.
Okay.
Do we know why it was suddenly withdrawn from
It was
approval?
my understanding it had to do with the proprietary nature of the flash pattern and the design of the actual RRFB unit. And so what they decided at the federal level is, due to that proprietary nature, it wasn't competitive with other vendors, so it more or less locked that into one particular vendor.
Gotcha.
And they did not agree with that at the federal level.
Yeah, that sounds like it's definitely something outside of yours or our control. It's just
Right.
preach to the choir here that a process or a regulation is going to get in the way of public safety. You know, people cross the street at
You
dark,
know,
it just makes no sense to me,
It
so.
was a big head shaker to us,
Right,
especially since we had identified and were moving on with, making it happen. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Are all the coastal dune lake educational signs in place?
No, ma'am, there's a couple of them that have not been installed because of the path work we're doing between 83 and 283.
Okay.
As soon as we get done with that, we'll put them back in.
Thanks for moving the western lake one to the
Yeah.
boardwalk.
Yep.
It's very nice. Thank you very much.
Since it came up, when will that path work is scheduled to be completed?
Mid-May, and it will be.
Mid-May.
For sure.
Before summer.
You're confident?
Josh Irvin's keeping a daily lookout on it.
All right.
We had a few issues with it, base material. The road right-of-way does not fall into the White Sands Protection Zone. So when we inquired during design and permitting, we were told that. So we gave the contractor the option to use the appropriate base material. When they first put it out there, we recognized that we probably should have mandated, lime rock base versus select fill or clay fill. And so we actually gave them a change order. It was approved at the last BCC meeting. They have it. It delayed the project slightly, but not much. We think we can make the time up. And we had a few utility conflicts. As much as we try to coordinate during design and permitting phase of where the utilities are, invariably we find some that nobody knew about. And so we found some gas lines and we found some stormwater structures that didn't appear on previous as-built plans from utility providers or on road right-of-way as-builts. And so we work around that. A few other issues at the Alligator Lake. There's a lot of miscellaneous debris underneath the sand bottom of the creek that flows from one side to the other. Makes it hard to put piles in. We think we've worked around that as well. So, with any kind of construction, there's always issues, but our contractor seems very reasonable to work around them. And we know it's been, we've got a lot of phone calls on, how we could have done things better. The short answer is there wasn't a way to put in an alternative bike path without permitting 3 new bridges across 3 coastal dune lakes. As well as building a new path. And that path cost $1.8 million to replace it, so we could surmise that a new one on their side of the road would have cost equal. We simply don't have funds to do that. That area of road didn't warrant a path on both sides. In the future, we're already working with Public Works on different areas of the path and sidewalks on the opposite side of the road. And so coming up in the future is complete redo of 30A from 395 to Eastern Lake. When I say in the future, there's a 2 to 3 year plan to get past Campbellton Road, Campbell Street, and then to carry that further on to Eastern Lake. That would include new road surface, reclamation of some right-of-way, path appropriately off the side of the road with its own stormwater, sidewalk on the opposite side of the road, and proper connectivity across the road with crosswalks and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work coming up. There's going to be a lot of frustration and consternation, but we got to do it. There is no off season anymore. There is a little bit in December and January, but projects that take longer than 2 months invariably are going to fall into somebody's season. And so, as you're out there as Destination Improvement Committee member, take the opportunity when people are fussing and complaining to say, hey, we've been trying to do this and we're doing it, and you ought to get behind it and realize that the finished product is going to be really nice.
Great.
So,
Well, you can balance out the frustration in Miramar Beach with the 98 widening.
there you go.
That's
Exactly.
gonna
I mean,
get
it's the
really
same
fun.
thing,
So we got it on both ends of the county.
Yeah, but people have been saying that the county's been lagging in that,
Yeah,
and so
it's
now
good to catch up.
now that we're doing it, there's a lot of design and permitting takes a long time. Everybody likes to think that, oh gosh, house starts coming out of the ground, that they went down to the building department, got a building permit last week, and they're building. It's not. It's especially in our heavily environmentally regulated areas. You know, it's hard through all the different regulatory agencies to get something designed and permitted, and then when you come into an issue where it's got to change, you got to go back. It, you know, it's and then funding. You know, I mean, we realize you're a pretty good revenue stream, but the county itself, you know, does not. I mean, they do. I mean, we have good tax base, good sales tax base, good ad valorem tax, but it's not like there's just wads or huge pockets of money out there to do these large capital improvement projects.
Well, thank you for that change order regarding the fill.
Yeah, like I say, you know, and moving forward, any path work we do, we're just going to go ahead and mandate it from the front. You know, once we realized the probability of that red field getting in those coastal dune lakes, you know, we're not worried. I wasn't worried about it too much on the other areas of the path. It would be encapsulated, which you can actually bring fill into a white sand protection zone if it is encapsulated under asphalt or paving, stuff like that. But, you know, we looked at it. I think what was it, $68,000, and we thought it'd be in the best interest of all concerned. So, Board of County Commissioners saw it the same way, and they're working hard. So,
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other committee comments?
Was there any ruling in Tallahassee about the customary use?
pardon me.
Did they rule in Tallahassee about our customary use in Walton County?
I'll defer that to our legal representative.
Okay. I haven't heard, so that's why I'm asking.
Just found out today, it did pass the House and Senate, and it has been forwarded on to the governor for his signature. So we are assuming that it will be signed, but we'll know in the next 15 days.
Thank you.
That's also a good read if you hadn't read it,
Okay.
the bill. 631. Yeah, 631.
Okay.
All righty.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I got one more thing to say. All right, so, you know, as a committee, we consider different things, and they come to us in different ways. A lot of them are brought to us by committee members, by going out and looking in the community and seeing where things can be improved. Other items are brought to us by outside parties. It may be brought to you, and then y'all bring it to us, or send it to Stacy, or you can ask them to send it directly to Stacy, and she'll put it on the agenda. And so, like I say, once again, if you haven't gotten out and gotten about, please do. We have some ride-along programs with our different code enforcement and beach maintenance, if that would be a better way for you to get out. So contact me on that if you would choose to go do that. That also might be a way that you can get a better idea of what we do as beach operations, which is code enforcement and maintenance, and help you to formulate some ideas. And if you got any questions between now and next meeting as to what we've already done or what we're doing, send me a quick email or call me, and I'll be glad to share it with you. At our next meeting, I'll update you a little better on our capital improvement projects. We'll have PowerPoint presentations of what we're doing and all that. And I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send to everybody, especially new members, this our last one we did, and that'll give you an idea of what we already have in play under design and permit. So, and it refreshed everybody else's memory. I know it's been a long time since we got together.
Yeah, it has.
It has. Thank you, Brian. Do we need a motion to adjourn, or do we just adjourn?
I think you just adjourned.
All right, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Can I ask what you were asking?